Personal. Today on Finance is Personal, I'm going to change it up a little and talk about conquering finance, how to be successful, leadership, and how to get those crazy, negative, insecure voices out of our headspace and replace them with good, goal-oriented, empowered voices. And when it comes to conquering finance, whether it's getting your finances in order or venturing off to start a business or a career, it's important for women to pursue these things with confidence and think big. Joining me today is Ann Kaplan, CEO and President of iFinance Canada, one of the largest consumer finance companies in Canada, with loan applications exceeding $1 billion. She's an award-winning businesswoman, author, and star of the reality show, The Real Housewives of Toronto. Ann's here to share her thoughts on the mindset behind success, thinking big, and her fifth book entitled, How to Be Successful in Spite of Yourself. I really enjoyed reading this book.
Thanks for reading it.
And I have to tell you, people can see you, people can judge. They think, oh, really? She started a company, she's married to a wealthy man, it's okay. This is why she's successful. But if you read the book, there are so many layers to you, and people will see that you started this with blood, sweat, and tears because you had to.
You're right. People meet me and they hear about my husband, who's a plastic surgeon, and they think, I must just stand behind him. He must be involved in the company. But actually, I started up the finance company before I even met my husband, and he has nothing to do with the company. Now, he is my husband,
right?
But he's not behind my successes in finance at all.
So how did you come up with the idea? Because it's brilliant as far as I'm concerned. iFinance Canada, you lend money for plastic surgery procedures, dental, veterinary, and home renovations. And those are all subjects that banks will stay away from.
They do. Well, generally they want collateral.
Right.
So I knew that we were going to go to a two-tiered medical system. So I set up the company to finance people at that time just for medical procedures. And then it expanded into all the other verticals over the years.
So when did you start it, and how did you think about it? Like, you were a divorced mother of 2 little children.
Yes,
with
I was.
No means.
Yeah. No means, no money. Yeah. My father that brought me up was a radiologist and an internist, and he kept saying, we're going to go to a two-tiered medical system. Now, my mother was a psychologist, my uncle a doctor, everyone in our family were doctors. Mm-hmm. And the conversation was, we'll go two-tiered. And I thought, what happens when we become a two-tiered medical system in Canada? How are we going to pay for medical procedures if we're no longer completely covered by OHIP? Or BC Med, or our provincial health care plans. And so I started a company to finance the medical procedures that would be ready when we went two-tiered. Mm-hmm. But the easier entry was to enter into the cosmetic enhancement avenue.
Right.
At the time, it wasn't booming. It was pre-Botox, when anybody would ever say anything, and pre-laser eye surgery when it was mainstream.
Right.
So when we entered in 1996, it's the beginning of the cosmetic enhancement boom. So we did $1 million in our first 13 months. And the 13th month, in that month alone, we did another $1 million. And it just has grown astronomically over 23 years.
And you said one of your biggest mistakes was not thinking big.
Yes.
So what you wanted to make $1 million, but then you said, no, I should have been thinking about $1 billion.
I shouldn't have put limits on it. And so now whenever I think about something, I think global reach. I think, how far can I get with this? How can I make widgets? What can I do? So when I've expanded, I have thought about global reach. Like, as long as I can keep replicating and offering something to a worldwide audience, mm-hmm. then I can do a lot better. Then if I try to think too small, I'm capping my vision. I'm capping what I can do.
Right. And so in your book, you talk about going in and meeting with people, and you were focused. You were focused about what the meeting was going to be about, yes. what you wanted to talk about, and yes. that's what you went in with. Because a lot of people think, oh my gosh, okay, I have Ann Kaplan. I'm going to talk to her about 10 different things. I'm going to focus on the one, but I'm going to bring up everything else. But that's not the right thing to do.
Whenever I've got in a meeting, I'm ready. And I go in well prepared. I read whatever I can about anyone I'm in front of. And if I'm in a bank meeting, if I'm pitching for money, if I'm interviewing people, or even if I'm with my children or my husband, I'm focused on that person mm-hmm. at that moment, and I'm as prepared as I can be. And I live my life like that, being prepared for whatever's going to come my way, because there's always a surprise.
This is true. Nobody likes surprises.
No, and also, I know what I want when I go in a meeting. that if I'm pitching for money, I want to come out with money, or I want to come out with another meeting, or I want to come out with a referral. I know what I want, and I figure it out. What does that person want from me when I go in a meeting?
Right.
And I figure out what trade could we have, what fair trade could we have that we both come out ahead. And maybe that might be that we don't end up doing anything. But I do figure out the agenda of the other person when I go into any kind of meeting.
And I guess you really have to have a good relationship with that person. Women are quite intuitive.
Yes.
And I feel that, like, I know if I go into a meeting with someone and I don't quite like something about them, I know it's not a right fit for me.
It might not be, but if you're pitching for money and it's a mainstream bank and you're thinking, oh, I don't know if this person is quite right. I had that once with a banker. There was something he was doing that was not right, and he wasn't stepping up to the plate. I'm used to my bankers paying a lot of attention to me, and he just wasn't doing that. And he was falling behind. And I'm not used to that in dealing with our great banks that we have in Canada.
Right.
And I thought about it, and I thought, I've dealt with this bank for a long time. We deal with many banks now, but I thought, I've dealt with them for a long time. What do you do when he was a new replacement banker, a new manager? What do you do when you fall behind? And you're thinking, this isn't quite a fit. And I really seriously thought about it, because I could pick up that phone and I could phone their manager. And I knew I could in the position I'm in. I've done banking for a long time.
Right.
And I decided not to. I decided to try to make my banker a better banker. And so even not wanting to, ideally, it would have been faster just to phone up the manager and say, hey, look, you're his manager, and say, your new manager's falling behind. But I didn't. And I ended up with a great manager. And it took a little bit longer, but I ended up working with him, never went over his head, and ended up fixing that relationship. So that was good. And
that is good. And you know what? A lot of people would have gone the opposite way. They would have made the phone call and say, you know what? I don't like this guy. Get me somebody else. But you took the time and effort to foster that relationship.
Yeah, and I try to do that with people in general. So if you think you might be working with someone, you have a new employee or something, you're thinking, I'm not too sure. It's like, figure out a way to work with them. Now, there's evil out there, and there's people that do things, they steal and stuff like that. I don't forgive that.
Right.
When it comes to business. But when you're working with someone who's perfectly capable, but there might be a little bit of a personality clash, or they might be falling a bit behind your pace, is figure out a way to bring them up to work with you. Because the outcome should be that everybody's respectfully happy in their employment with their jobs.
And it's a win-win for everyone.
It is.
Right?
It is.
We'll be right back with Ann after the break to talk more about thinking big and the road to success here on Finance is Personal. Welcome back to Finance is Personal. I'm Liz Naumovski, and we're here today with CEO and President of iFinance Canada, Ann Kaplan. And let's talk about networking, because I think networking is really, really important. There are a lot of people that will go home after work or go to the bar and hang out with their friends. But going out and networking is very helpful to your career, to growth and success.
Absolutely. When I started iFinance Canada, which was many, many years ago, I made a point of, it's a numbers game. I'd phone up somebody and I'd say, can you give me 10 minutes? And it would be somebody that I knew that was in banking, not necessarily ever met them before. And I would ask for just 10 minutes of their time, and I would be able to get in. I don't think anybody ever said no for 10 minutes of time. And my goal from that was to come up with information, not money, or to come up with a referral. And I networked through that. And every person I met, if they made a comment about they had a wife named Janice, or they had two children, or they had a dog named Muffy, or something like that, I would make those notes.
On the back of the business cards?
On the business cards, but I also put them in my contacts. And in my contact list, which your iPhone contact list, I have notes on the people I've met. And I also, the ones that were sort of higher up in banking, or I knew were going to be in my field for a long time, and the people that I wanted on my team, which is nothing wrong with wanting people on your team, that I thought that maybe later on we might do business, I would send them postcards of things that I have done. And now you can send emails out, but back
Right.
then I would do postcards. This is 23 years ago, and this is what we're doing. And I kept in contact with people.
Good for you.
And networked and networked and networked, and always professional, always.
I think one of the key things that you just said is you called for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you kept it to 10 minutes and said, okay, we're done. Because a lot of people think, oh, I've got 10 minutes, let me see if I can get an hour out of them.
And it's not good, because when somebody calls me up and says, can I get 10 minutes of your time, just for an example, I will say, what is the agenda, for one? And I want them to tell me or email me the agenda, because I don't like it when someone says, I just want to meet you, I want some advice in finance. And then they come in and say, oh, well, I've got this company, I want you to invest in it. Or when they switch the topic,
Right.
or they switch the ask, it's not fair, because you've asked for 10 minutes of someone's time, and if you actually go in and switch it and say, I'm looking for a job, or if you want to look for a job, tell someone you want to look for a job. But be honest, too, about what your agenda is.
Full transparency.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so talk about full transparency. In your book, you talk about the fact that you go in to meet these bankers, and you walk into this boardroom with 40 chairs, and it's all
Yes.
men, and the man, the chairman had said to you something about, I hope you're not intimidated, or
Yes.
this isn't intimidating, and I loved your comment. You said, sir, I will try not to intimidate you further.
I did.
Brilliant.
I did. How dare he look at me and say, he said to me, you must be intimidated. No,
Why?
This must be very intimidating,
Yes.
he said. And I looked at him and said, sir, I will try not to intimidate you further, yes. And I never did business with them. That wasn't the only reason why, but that was sort of the beginning of the end. And I just thought, why? Because I'm female, am I supposed to be intimidated? I didn't really like that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
But I can get over it. I can get over it.
Well, I think we all
Yeah.
can, right? So let's talk about intimidation. And I'm going to segue now to, there's so many younger women right now that say, you know, if only I could marry a wealthy man. All my financial problems will be over. I'll be able
Do you
to have
think
nice
so?
things.
Do you think that's how
I
women are
don't.
still thinking?
Yes, I see a lot out there right now. I see a lot of young women with a lot of Louis Vuitton bags that they can't
Yes.
afford, and
Yes.
a lot of clothing that they can't afford, saying, you know, oh, I'm looking for a rich man.
Yes.
But the bottom line is that money belongs to the rich man,
That's true.
right?
But that's
It's
not how women think.
It's not theirs.
That kind.
But you had a line in your book, and you said, you know, women aren't that pathetic, and men are not that stupid, which I thought was really good.
Yes, a man knows when this is the trait. He knows that. But I feel, and I feel very strongly, that you can get a wealthy man if that's what your goal is. But I mean, work on yourself to be the wealthy woman, and then pick whatever wealthy man that you want.
True.
Pick somebody else that has that kind of a drive. But I guess marrying for retirement, you know, you can just now take it easy the rest of your life, and that's somebody's choice. It is a choice.
It is a choice.
It's a choice.
And so let's talk about the choice of being successful. Because you say that it is our choice. If we've decided that we want to be successful,
Yes.
we focus and we go forward.
Yes, and we define success. And so if success is living your life the way you want to, then you need to define what living your life the way you want to is. And to me, that's being successful. Not necessarily having to be rich. If your goal is not money, you might want to live a more philanthropic life, or you want to live a more giving life. I have a sister that's a registered nurse, a pediatric registered nurse, and her whole goal is to one day retire and go and help out in another third world country. And so to me, she's very successful, but her goal isn't to have all these things.
Right.
Her
Our goal is to give back.
Yes. And so you can still have both. You can still have a lot of things and still give back and live a philanthropic life. But she's all about being a nurse and giving.
You know, one of the key things in your book, too, which I loved, is that you tell women, and whoever's reading your book, which I loved, by the way, and I think everybody should pick it up, because it shows that you are not, you're not just one-dimensional. There are so many different layers to you, almost like an onion, right? You get to the next layer, and then you get to the next layer, and there's so many different wonderful things to you.
Aren't we all like that, though?
I think
when
so.
When you start to peel back.
I think when you get to meet
Yes.
people and understand them, yes.
When you take the time, there is so much to everyone, and everyone has a tough time, a sad story, something underneath all of that. And you could bring tears to someone's eyes just by bringing up something. And there's a lot to everybody. It's very complex.
Well, that's just it. I mean, life is not fair, and life is difficult, and everyone has gone through, everyone has had something really horrible happen to them, either once or multiple times.
Yeah.
And as I said, like reading your story, I mean, if I didn't read it, I wouldn't have known. You had a really, really tough time.
I did.
And it's incredible that you have had, you know, you've created an amazing business from nothing. And you could have sat at home and said, you know what, I've had a really tough time and life sucks and life is not fair, and just leave it at that. But you had goals and you had aspirations, and you decided to kick it in the butt and move forward.
And I did for a while, because I ended up a single mom with 2 boys. And for a while I felt like I had failed. And we do that. We go, my life should have been, I got married, my husband looked after me, I had 2 children, and that would be it. But when my marriage ended, I felt like I had failed, but I hadn't. My marriage didn't make it, but I hadn't failed. And once I realized that I was not the one who failed, that I just move on, I go forward, and I pick myself up, and then life wasn't over. It was just another chapter, a different chapter in my life. And I just moved forward after that. But I was in a very sad state for a period of time when I ended up single with 2 kids.
We'll be right back with Finances Personal to hear more about Ann's journey and her 5th book titled How to Be Successful in Spite of Yourself. Welcome back to Finances Personal. I'm Liz Naumovski, and I'm excited to have award-winning businesswoman and author Ann Kaplan on the show today. And thank you again for being here and sharing your story.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk to you about those negative voices. We all have them. No matter how successful you are, we still have, like I know that I do, I still have those times where I feel insecure, and I've got that negativity inside my head. But only I can hear that negativity. It's not out there for everybody else to see and hear and understand. And we are our worst enemy.
We are our worst enemy. And I think I kind of lower the bar for me, where I think, what's the worst thing that could happen? And I actually wake up happy. I'm a happy person. But I think, what's the worst thing that could happen? So when it's something where I'm feeling like I'm not at my best, or I'm feeling sluggish, I have to tell myself, this isn't so bad. Just pick myself up and just keep going. Because as long as my children are okay and my family's okay, then life can be great. And if I'm being faced by obstacles, I can get through it. I know I can get through it.
There's I come from a Macedonian background, and there's a word called stramota, right? It's embarrassing. And if I've had a bad day at work, I talk to my mother every day, and we're on the phone, and I'll say, oh, I've had a bad day. Not at work, but just in general, I've had a bad day. And she'll say, oh, I'm so sorry. And I said, no, don't be sorry. It would be embarrassing. It would be stramota for me to complain about my life. There is nothing to complain about. We have good days, we have bad days. Yeah. To me, the glass is always half full, right? It doesn't matter what the day is like. If you're on vacation and it's raining, so be it. It doesn't matter. So I think that if you have that outlook in life, that, the glass is always half full, I think it helps you become more and more successful and more likable.
Well, when you say about these negative voices too, I was talking to one of my kids, and I've got a lot of kids.
8.
Yes. And this child just recently was saying to me that he had friends that were mean and, bullying. Mm-hmm. And I felt my heart broke, because even though I could hear it in his voice, he was talking himself out of listening to it. He knew the answers. He knew that they were being mean. He knew that he could get through it. He knew that he didn't want to listen to them. He had all the right answers, but yet he was so hurt. He was so absolutely hurt. And we see that a lot today with bullying online.
We do.
Even when I have my Instagram and I wear the same outfit twice, it's just, how can you do that?
Seriously?
Yes, yes.
Oh, I repeat outfits. I don't care.
We should trade clothes then, or something like that. But it's just, basically people that are nice, but I know that there is a lot of bullying that goes on the internet, and I find that hurtful. I think if people started coming at me and they were really mean, I probably would get really hurt.
Of course.
And I know better. I know better not to listen to it. I know to listen to my own inner voice and my own values, but it still painful.
Of course it is.
But to see your child be bullied, it's just, I mean, I just want to go in like, let me beat them up. Let me get involved. And he was, no, don't get involved. But
good for him, though.
it hurt.
Of course it hurt.
It hurt for him.
There's, I went and spoke at Wilfrid Laurier, Women in Leadership Laurier. And it was great. It was all about, you know, how do you get to a level of mentoring, success, and everything else. And one of the girls came up to me afterwards and said, you know, you talked about the fact that you make a decision and you move on, right? You're very decisive. And she said, I don't know how to do that. And she said, I think about my friends, and I don't want to hurt them, so I won't make the decision, or I won't make the right decision because of that.
Well, if you have a set of values, and you know your values, and if you're not too sure, write down what's important to you, but find a set of values that you make all your decisions from, and it makes it a little bit easier. And if part of your values is that you value your friendship and your close friendships and your close relationships, write that down as one of your values. And so when you have somebody, like one of her friends, and she doesn't want to hurt them, base whatever that action is she was speaking of on respecting her friends, etc. And it makes it a lot easier when you know your values and all of your decisions are based on those values. And maybe if you wrote them down, you wouldn't bully someone.
Yeah, there you go. And speaking of values, wearing the same outfit, you talk about buying things on sale, which is one of my favorite things to do.
Is there a sale?
Can we go?
Yeah, I do.
Because honestly, we all work hard for our money, regardless of how much money you make or I make or whatever. It doesn't matter. I work hard for mine, you work hard for yours.
Yeah.
And I try to never buy anything unless it's on sale. And I love the fact that you said that.
Yeah, and I'll go to consignment stores. I will buy something that I think is okay, and then I'll change it slightly. I mean, I own it, I can do that.
Right.
There was a couture dress, a long gown that I bought, and I went down to, they used to have this designer fabrics on Queen Street, it's not there anymore, and I bought these little pink flowers and I had them attached at the seamstress.
Good for you.
And put them all over the dress. And one of my friends said, you can't do that. I said, I can do whatever I want, it's my dress.
It's true.
And so I changed a designer dress to make it a little bit more fun.
Yeah.
I thought, and it was on sale when I bought it as well. So I also, when I would like something, I also raise the bar now. So when I'm thinking that I would like to buy something, I don't think, oh no, it's too much for me. I think, what do I need to do to be able to afford this?
Right.
And I've actually called people up to say, how do you understand investing in XYZ? And I ask them for an hour of their time, an hour on that one, and no pitching for money.
Right.
It's just make me understand how to invest in these kinds of things. And then I make some decisions out of that too.
Right.
But I do set the bar higher now. So I don't say, I'll never afford it. I go, how can I get that? If it's that important.
Well, good for you, because a lot of people will go out and purchase things even if they can't afford it. And that's important when you're looking at financial literacy. Don't spend more than you make.
You don't spend more than you make. And I write down what are my expenses a month. I don't look at spending money on clothes or something like that and then going into debt for it. It's like, this is my budget, and I stick to that budget. Now, you might go out and make a large purchase or something like that, like an investment purchase. That's a little bit different. Then you have to rethink that and see what you can afford. But I look at the cash flows of anything that I'm investing in, and I make sure that I can afford it.
Okay, so we've got 1 minute left, and this is a loaded question. It's important to eat properly. It's important to work out, to clear your head and be financially fit and physically fit. And it's important to have the right partner in your life to help you be successful as well. Or not help you, but support you.
Yes, but that person should not bring you down.
Correct.
And if you happen to end up having married to someone and you've made the decision that I'm staying in it for thick or thin, make it work. Figure out how to make it work. Or if not, get on with your life, leave that person. There is nothing wrong with separating or divorcing from someone who constantly pulls you down, brings you back, undermines you, any of that. But make sure that you're financially fit, and if you're not, you will make it. You will be okay.
As Ann says in her book, success is a choice. If you don't like something in your life and opt to not make change, that's your choice. You've chosen not to invite success into your life. And the bottom line is that life is challenging and unfair. If building a successful career or business is your goal, be sure to leave all your excuses behind. Believe in yourself and don't underestimate your abilities. Develop the belief that you have something valuable inside of you that the world wants. And make sure that you prepare your mindset. Eat properly, work out, learn, focus, and remove that negative voice. I'd like to thank Ann Kaplan for joining me today and you, our viewers, for watching. For more information about our show and to view past episodes, please go to financespersonal.ca. I'm Liz Naumovski. Bye for now.